Good morning, everyone. Welcome to AI Minute Mondays, where I take a couple of minutes each Monday to demystify AI for everyone. AI isn't just about futuristic tech, it's about solving real world problems. Today, we are going to talk about the social impact of AI and how it can change lives in underserved regions. Joining me on AI Minutes today to unpack this topic is Vikas Arora, who's a senior advisor for technology and AI at Game and also board member at Tresix. So, Vikas, our paths crossed 25 years back at Microsoft, and it's been great to watch your journey unfold. But for our viewers, can you share a little bit about your background?
Hi, Suchi. First of all, great to be talking to you. I know when we reconnected recently, and I must have been after 15 years or so. It was such a pleasure and to know that what you've been up to and to be on your episode. Like you said, we worked at Microsoft together, doing great things, one of the best years of my professional life for sure, working at things that we did and working with great people like yourself. Since then, I sort of went on to work for, organizations, from great organizations like EMC, IBM, and more recently at Google Cloud. Recently, earlier this year, I started the next phase of my journey, and that sort of took me into directions of, offering, my advice and being on board positions like you said. And interestingly, one of the organizations that I work for is called GAME. It stands for Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship. It's a collaborative effort, which is actually focused on creating thriving entrepreneurial ecosystems in small towns and cities in India. It's an amazing mission. Game works with the governments, games work with businesses, game works with civil societies to make sure that growth is actually decentralized. Because game believes that only when growth is decentralized is when true economic flourishing will happen because job creation can then happen in a much more diversified manner, and many more cities and towns can participate in the India growth journey. So I work with them. It's been a learning experience from enterprise customers to now working with a very different set of people, but it's been fun.
Thank you, Vikas, for sharing your journey. It is super interesting in terms of working, changing completely your customer segment and working with a totally different area. So let's delve a little bit more into that. Let's talk about the social impact of AI. And as we all know, AI is influencing our everyday lives from how we learn, how we work, how we govern, how we connect with with each other. But most importantly, AI holds a lot of transformational power for the areas that you spoke about, the underserved regions, where traditionally these systemic barriers have limited their access to opportunity. So, can you share your thoughts on how AI can bridge this gap in the what the traditional world has failed to do?
Yeah, sure. Like I said, this has been a new journey, so I am still a student here. But one of my biggest learnings in the last few months has been that the magic of AI is not as much in the apps that are actually built for urban convenience, but it actually has the potential to actually change the destiny of people who live on the margins. When you think about India, and we all are very proud of the growth journey that India has had. A lot of times, the narrative is focused on urban growth and large cities, and where we hear Bangalore, we hear Mumbai, we hear Delhi. But what doesn't get told as much about the India growth journey is how much work and how much things are happening in the remote cities and towns in India. But when you go and talk to entrepreneurs there, you mentioned the word barriers. The barriers are very different. Things that you take for granted, in our context, are real barriers. And I'll sort of give you, some examples. Uh, Think about, a pulse manufacturer in, let's say, a place like Nagpur. Uh, and someone which is a friends and family business, they sort of, they've got to a point in time where they now look at the next phase of growth. And there are many things, that sort of come, that they are sort of, they hit as a barrier there. How do you get the right advice on what do you build your organization for the next phase of growth? If someone's done this and been through that journey, how do you get the learnings from there? Where is credit available? Where is talent available? Where is the government subsidies available that can actually help you, get on a growth path faster? Those are all things that while we take for granted, those are real challenges. And think about someone who's probably not even familiar with English, and he would like to sort of discover all of that, in their own local context. Now think of another, example, a women entrepreneur who's looking to start a new business. Now think of she doing it in a remote city in India. How do you even, know about all the compliances that you have to have as a business, a GST registration, for instance. How do you do that? If you want to basically get onto e-commerce with your product, what's the process of doing that? How do you even build a professional looking catalog? In fact, I'll give you one example. We work with what we call as collectives. And think of collectives as like aggregators who work with a lot of women producers who could be around the place where you are. It could be in the nearby villages, and they are making things like pickles and handicraft and shawls and all of these things. And it's like second income for the family. And these are, women who are they probably have just a smartphone, which is a budget smartphone, but they're good at what they do. And these aggregators look at helping them with how do they actually sell. So they find market for them, offline markets, exhibitions. They provide them with warehouse and inventory, to store their products, and so on and so forth. And recently we discovered that many of them would like to take them online, like Amazon, for instance. And the time it takes for them to actually build a professionally looking catalog for the products that are built in a nearby village, it could be as much as 45 to 60 days sometimes. So, how do you sort of, come up with great images? How do you come up with, great narratives? How do you come up with the right pricing strategy, so on and so forth? And, so that, that time becomes the bottleneck. How many women producers do I get online as quickly as I can? So these are just examples of, the kind of challenges that, that at least I now see, that entrepreneurs across the world, and there are like more than 60 million of these entrepreneurs in the country. So the opportunity is immense. And these are, again, I'm sure this probably must be coming to you as well. AI can solve some of these challenges. AI can actually help in, in getting online faster, in building catalogs faster, and getting the right mentoring available to you. So our approach in game has been to work with a set of ecosystem partners, uh, who would probably be solving part of this problem somewhere.
Mhm.
Uh, and find the right need statements that these entrepreneurs have, and then
Mhm.
using our imagination to see how can AI help, and try to bring these three things together. And so, for instance, we are building an agentic chatbot here, uh, you know, in local language, in local dialect,
Mhm.
which actually brings in some great mentoring content and frameworks from someone who's been doing this, an organization that have been doing it for 30 years. But what they're limited by is the scale, and the number of entrepreneurs that they can reach. So this
Mhm.
would become a way for us to give it scale. So we're not making the content, but we're just allowing it to be accessible to many more people out there, and maybe take them out of Nagpur and take them to, let's say, Vizag. And we're
Mhm.
also again using, another, AI implementation to create professional looking catalogs for products, that are there, but it shouldn't take 45 days to sort of create something, that Amazon can accept. So these are examples of work. I mean, lots to be done. We're getting started. We are doing some MVPs now. But hopefully, if we're able to crack, a problem in the context of a cluster, in the context of a district, in the context of a town or a village, the replication potential of that opportunity is just so amazing that, the impact is huge to make.
Yeah. Thank you, Vikas, for sharing that. That is truly inspirational, because this is where AI really matters, where it can actually change lives, not just for a small segment of urban population, but for the larger humanity. So that's super great to hear your journey and your story along those lines. But while you're working on this, what are the challenges that you have seen with AI as it is today? Is it something that's actually could leave people in underserved regions behind and widen the gap, or is it able to reduce it? And how do we basically address this challenge?
No, it's interesting, and I think this is a sort of a moving target, if you will. But one thing that I have learned is that while the promise of AI is real, you've got to approach it with a lot of humility. And I'll talk about two things here. One is what you can call as digital exclusion. Now, think about the data sets that you work with, as you have to build these catalogs. Now, sometimes the local communities and what they do and the kind of context information is very invisible to these data sets today. Think of a pickle manufacturer in Nagaland. Nagaland pickles are made out of bamboo shoots and Naga King chilies and things that are very local. And these are local delicacies. But then you would struggle to find data sets that can actually understand these products and are able to then take a picture and then generate a compelling narrative for that, which can be posted onto an online catalog. So now, so the limitation of data sets, is an important one, especially in the context of the work that needs to reach the remote parts of India. The other one is adoption, and how do you think about what gets used and adopted more seamlessly than what gets does not? Because our context of using AI is well defined. We use AI in certain ways. The interfaces are kind of becoming standard. But then if you think about a woman who's got a 10,000 rupee budget smartphone, and all she knows is how do you click a picture, and doesn't obviously know English, and probably even the language has got a dialect that, the multilingual interfaces do not understand. How do you find the right interface so that they find it useful to adopt that AI feature? So I can't say that we have solved any of these challenges today. That's why the approach that we take is that we take a phased approach. We say, okay, if there are 10 needs, we take two, we build MVPs, we try and use it with a pilot group, and learn from that adoption on what works and what doesn't. And I think that's the iterative process. Maybe the V1 certainly is not going to get there. Maybe even V2 will not get there. But hopefully, when we get to V3, we've sort of cracked it to an extent that we can then look to scale it. So, yeah, I mean, those are some of the challenges that are out there. But it's exciting to be even knowing those challenges and trying to solve those. And hopefully someday we should, not in too distant a future.
Thank you, Vikas. That was great. Thank you for sharing these thoughts. So, to summarize, AI has great potential to bridge the divide across humanity and aid in social upliftment. But for this to be a reality, AI must be built with all the community voices at the table, with everyone in mind, with inclusion, with plans for adoption. And also, we have to make sure that AI is not just scaling innovation, it is also scaling equity. So, thank you for sharing your thoughts, Vikas, and so happy to have you on the show.
Thank you,
Uh,
Suji. Thank you. It was great talking to you. Thank you for choosing this topic. I know this is a little different than the usual episodes that I've seen you do. Not much tech, but I hope this was interesting.
oh, yeah, I'm sure our users find it super interesting. And thank you so much once again for being on our show.
Thank you,
That's all
Suji.
that we have
Bye.
in minute. Bye.